Hi, I'm Philip Smith, financial planner with Tidepool Wealth Strategies, helping self-employed professionals and solopreneurs just like you cultivate resilience in your plans to retire well. This is the Financial Planning Podcast about money management, best practices for long-term growth, wealth building truths and fallacies, successful retirement strategies, and more, where I'll be sharing concise, actionable retirement planning guidance. Welcome to the Financial Flow. Pool of financial knowledge to take a closer look at retirement plan options for the self-employed. This episode is going to go a little long, so I am going to try to speak a little bit quicker than I usually do. Whether you're just starting your business or reevaluating your retirement strategy, this episode will cover the various retirement plan options that you can leverage in pursuit of your retirement savings goals. Now, before we get into the details, let me share a quick story. I have a client, and anytime I reference a client or couple, it'll always be Joe and Mary for the sake of anonymity and consistency. So one of Joe's big concerns when he left an insurance firm to start his own agency was that he wasn't sure how to go about continuing to save for retirement. He'd had a great 401k plan before, but now, in addition to buying his own health insurance and paying for everything else, Joe needed to figure out the best way to continue saving for retirement. Did he just roll over his 401k to an IRA and add money to that, or what? The discussion with Joe was a lot like what I'll share today, though we did go a lot deeper in that meeting and the ones that followed. We'll start with the basics, which was that first place that Joe's mind went to, those non-plan retirement account options, the traditional and Roth IRAs. A traditional IRA allows you to make tax-deductible contributions, which means every dollar contributed is deductible when you file your taxes, and you won't pay taxes on that money until you withdraw it in retirement. There are pros to this. Making tax-deductible contributions can lower your taxable income and your investments grow tax-deferred. But here are the things to be aware of. You'll pay taxes on withdrawals in retirement. You'll see the tax deductions today, but pay taxes in the future for the rest of your life on those distribution dollars. And we don't know what future tax rates will look like. If you believe, like I do, that at some point we need to pay down the $35 trillion of national debt that we have, taxes are the revenue source used to pay that debt. Sadly, we're going to need more taxes. So taxes are probably going up. Another thing to be aware of with traditional IRAs, there are required minimum distributions or RMDs starting at age 73. If you were born 1960 or later, it will be age 75 when you get there. You'll have to take money out and pay taxes on those distributions, whether you need the income or not. In Oregon, for state employees, this can mean a pension, Social Security, and required distributions, maybe more income than needed, resulting in more taxes than desired. There's an additional consideration with these basic IRAs. The annual contribution limit is much lower than employer-sponsored retirement plan options. Now, along a similar track, there's the Roth IRA. There's a big difference here, though. It's funded with after-tax dollars, so your contributions are not tax-deductible. However, your investments grow tax-free, and you won't pay taxes on qualified withdrawals in retirement, unless you live in Missouri or Michigan. They've somehow determined it's okay to apply a state tax to Roth IRA distributions. My solution to that involves not living in those states. Now, generally speaking, with a Roth IRA, you'll realize tax-free growth and withdrawals in retirement, assuming you're over 59 and a half and your Roth IRA has been open for 5 calendar years. There are no required minimum distributions with the Roth IRA. As a legacy planning strategy, which I will address in a future episode, Roth IRAs can be way more beneficial to leave to beneficiaries than traditional IRAs. The drawback is that the contributions are not tax deductible. Well, maybe you see this as a drawback, but I'd argue that there is a premium to be placed on future tax-free dollars that far surpasses what you pay in taxes today. And then there are income limits for contributions that you need to be aware of before putting money into this type of account. Remember, your Roth IRA and traditional IRA have a singular limit for annual contributions. That's $7,000 in 2024, with an additional $1,000 catch-up contribution for those who are over age 50. There's a lot more we could dig into, but one of my tenets of this podcast is to be concise, and I'm going to have a hard time doing it today, so we're going to keep moving on this topic. In my discussion with Joe, we determined that the limit on a traditional IRA was not going to help him with his retirement goals, and his household income was too high to make Roth IRA contributions. So Let's look at retirement plans designed for small business owners and the self-employed. There's the SIMPLE IRA, the SEP IRA, and the Solo 401k or Solo K. The Savings Incentive Match Plan for Employees, or SIMPLE IRA, is easy to set up and manage, making it a pretty popular choice for small businesses. There are no administrative fees, it's easy to establish and maintain, and employer contributions are tax deductible. There are some changes coming to SIMPLE IRAs, technically already enacted as law as part of Secure 2.0, but functionally not quite figured out yet, like the ability to have Roth contributions. But right now, plans are still only built to permit pre-tax, in other words, tax-deductible contributions. The 2024 annual contribution limit is $16,000, and there is an additional $3,500 that those over 50 years old can put in, so quite a bit more than your regular IRA. And that limit doesn't include the employer's matching contribution of 3% of your income. If your income is $100,000 and you are contributing more than 3% of your pay, then that's an additional $3,000 on top of your own employee, quote unquote, contributions. For a little while, this sounded like the best option to Joe, but the max contribution limit is lower than a couple of other options, so we kept going on the topic. For those of you with employees, you'll also want to remember that the matching structure is fairly inflexible, meaning those employer contributions are, for the most part, mandatory, 3% match. There is a second retirement plan option to look at, a simplified employee pension or SEP IRA. It technically allows higher contribution limits and is also straightforward to administer. The benefit is that there are potentially high contribution limits, flexible annual contributions, and the contributions are tax deductible. I say potentially high contribution limits because it depends on your income and how you pay yourself. Beware the S-Corp dilemma. Gosh, that too is a full topic for another episode. To keep it very brief, the max contribution in a SEP IRA is 25% of your pay. If you pay yourself a salary, then it's 25% of the salary. If you earn $200,000, but you pay yourself a salary of $60,000, then your max contribution for the year is 25% of that, or $15,000. You don't have the same issue with the SIMPLE IRA. Other possible limitations with the SEP include the fact that there can only be employer contributions. There are no employee contributions. Now, this isn't an actual problem for those who are self-employed, though. You're contributing to your own retirement. Also not an issue for self-employed, but a sure consideration for small business owners. Contributions in a SEP must be equal for all eligible employees, either an equal percent of salary, say 10% for everyone, or an equal flat dollar amount. Everybody gets $500. Finally, there is an option that is only available to those who are self-employed, with the exception permitted being if you and your spouse work together. It's the Solo K. A solo 401k is just that, a 401k designed for one, at most two participants if you're married. It's designed for self-employed individuals with no employees, offering high contribution limits and flexible investment options. Briefly as I can, here are the pros. You have high contribution limits, employee and employer contributions. In 2024, employee or payroll contributions can be up to $23,000 with a catch-up of $7,500 for those over age 50. You can choose pre-tax and or Roth contributions. There is a loan option available. Now remember, loans are not an option for anything with IRA in the name, and the employer contribution has a limit of 25% of earnings, or salary if you are structured as an S-Corp. But that's 25% of salary on top of your employee contribution limit to a max total contribution of $69,000 or $76,500 if you're over age 50. I know, it sounds great, but here are the things to be aware of. These are more complex to set up and administer, a little bit more ongoing documentation, you might say. You will definitely have some form of administrative costs, though these can be offset by the tax savings that are realized. And there can be additional administrative responsibilities if plan assets exceed $250,000. Setting up a solo 401k can feel like assembling a piece of IKEA furniture. At first, it's just a bunch of confusing parts and instructions, but when you follow the steps, you should end up with a sturdy plan and hopefully fewer leftover screws. That's not a very good joke. Anyways, as we'll discuss in the next episode, this is where Joe found the greatest ability to catch up on his retirement savings. So those are the 4 retirement plan options for someone who is self-employed: non-plan IRAs, the SIMPLE IRA, the SEP IRA, and the Solo K plan. As a brief summary comparison, each of these retirement plans has its advantages and disadvantages. Traditional and Roth IRAs are great for their simplicity and tax benefits, but they have the lowest cap on annual contributions. Employer-sponsored plans like the SIMPLE IRA, SEP IRA, and Solo 401k offer higher contribution limits and additional benefits, but they come with more responsibility. And in the case of the Solo K, additional costs. You have choice, and the great thing about that is you can hone in on the plan that is best suited to your needs, goals, and available savings today. So let's take some action on this. This week, take a look at your current retirement saving strategy. Consider whether what you are doing now is the best long-term strategy for you. If you need to, do some of your own research, maybe connect with a financial advisor or retirement plan expert who can help you make an educated and informed decision on which type of retirement plan might be best for you. Taking the time to plan now can make a significant difference in your financial future. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of The Financial Flow, brought to you by Tidepool Wealth Strategies. Until next time, stay resilient and plan to retire well. It's disclosure time. This podcast is intended for educational purposes only, should not be used for any other purpose. The views depicted in this material should not be considered specific advice or recommendations for any individual, are not intended to be financial, tax, or legal advice, and do not represent Tidepool Wealth Strategies or Cetera Advisor Networks, LLC. For a comprehensive review of your personal situation, always consult with a financial, tax, or legal advisor. Neither Cetera nor any of its representatives may give legal or tax advice. Our office address is 450 Country Club Road, Suite 350, Eugene, Oregon 97401. Securities and advisory services are offered through Cetera Advisor Networks, LLC, a broker-dealer, registered investment advisor, and member of FINRA and SIPC. Cetera is under separate ownership for any other named entity. Whew.